David, I think it's fair to say that for a lot of Bathonians, it wasn't until they saw all the publicity surrounding the Queen's visit that they became aware there was a St John's Foundation charity in the city. That's quite amazing, really, considering you've been going for 850 years.
I know, it's one of the frustrations that we suffer as well. We feel we've done an awful lot, particularly over the last 5 to 10 years, to try and raise the profile of the charity. But I guess our work is so specific in some ways that it's a relatively narrow population of beneficiaries and people that we work with that come to find out in detail about us. But absolutely one of the reasons we wanted to celebrate our 850th anniversary was to very significantly raise the profile of the organisation, because it's about raising the profile of the work that we do and why we need to do it.
850 years of service is absolutely amazing. Why do you think the charity has survived in that way?
Well, I think there are lots of charities like us founded at about the same time by the church. I think many others would have survived if it had not been the dissolution of the monasteries. We, by a quirk of fate, became disassociated from the church temporarily during Henry VIII's reign, and so didn't have our assets seized. So that's one reason for it. I think secondly, we have obviously been astute in across the years in the way that we have managed our investment assets, and so have been able to survive financially. But we have stuck very rigidly to our purpose as well, which is about changing lives for good, to put it in modern parlance. But we have always been here as a refuge for people who are struggling and need shelter and need food.
Tell me about the origins of St John's. Let's go back 850 years.
Indeed. So we were founded by the 4th Bishop of Bath in 1174. So Bishop Reginald Fitzjocelyn, who created the charity as a refuge for the poor in Bath, so people that needed food and needed shelter.
And I think we are standing very close to the spot where it all began.
Absolutely right behind me is the chapel of St Michael within, and that physical space is exactly where the charity was founded 850 years ago. The buildings around us we've expanded into over the years, although this site has always been ours.
We'd better explain where your revenue comes from. I mean, gifts of land, basically. You are one of the biggest landowners in the city, aren't you?
We certainly have been historically. Our assets are a little better balanced these days, so a little less emphasis on property. But yes, we've always been an endowed charity right from the off. We have benefited over the years from legacies, so gifts of land and property and money, and we have managed those assets very carefully. So we are very fortunate as a charity in that most of our charitable work we are able to fund from our investments.
And traditionally, you have cared for the old.
Absolutely. For many centuries, we have focused on looking after older adults, and that's very much at the heart of what we do now. We are traditionally an almshouse charity, so we provide secure, comfortable accommodation for adults in later life, from this complex in the city centre and another that we have up by the Royal United Hospital. So yes, looking after older adults, ensuring that older adults can live positive, independent lives for as long as they possibly can is really important to us.
And more recently, you've been turning your attention to the young as well.
Absolutely. Again, because we are fortunate to be able to fund our own charitable investments, we've always been conscious of other areas of need in the city and the surrounding area. And for, I would say, for many decades, we have provided financial support for individuals and families in crisis, and then more latterly for other charitable organisations that need additional financial support.
Are you seeing more evidence of need these days?
Well, absolutely, and actually very specifically 5 years ago, we reviewed our funding programme and very specifically alighted on the challenge of the educational attainment gap in Bath and North East Somerset, which I know sounds like a very technical issue, but we were staggered when we discovered the size and significance of the gap in outcomes between children who come from low incomes compared to the rest, and that gap is in this region is one of the worst in the country, and it's a marker for all sorts of inequalities in later life.
What events other than that amazing celebration in Bath Abbey do you have planned to mark 850 years in 2024?
So we will do a number of other things to keep the celebration going, and as I say, that is very much about keeping a good awareness of the social challenges that we're tackling and why. We will reflect on the outcomes of the fantastic event that we had last week to decide exactly on which events we'll take forward for the rest of the year. But watch this space, there will be other things happening.
Well, do let me know, and I will certainly give it a plug for you. Now, casting your mind back just a few days to Thursday, let's have some highlights for you of that day.
I think one of the things that really stole the show for the whole day was listening to the choir of children that had been assembled by Voices for Life and who performed in the Abbey. Those children were made up of Year 4 children from some of the schools that we support, and it was just delightful to hear them perform.
And what about Queen Camilla?
I suspect very strongly that was a big highlight for her. But also her being able to chat to some of our almshouse residents earlier in the day as well.
I understand she spoke to every one of them.
We had a number of residents sitting in the chapel taking tea and cake, and she sat down and she spoke to every single resident that was present in the chapel, which was lovely.
Well, let me wish you a very happy birthday, and you certainly don't look your age.
Even though I feel it sometimes. Thanks so very much.